everybody, I'm Chris Provost, and you're watching Pros Park Pass. And today's video is going to be very exciting because I'm going to tell you who I think is going to become the new CEO of Disney. What? Yeah, we're going to totally dive into that. But before we do that, could you do me a favor? Could you hit that subscribe button? That's a way that you can tell me that you like this type of content, and also hit the like button. And if you want to be notified when new things are coming, hit that little bell icon, and that way you'll be notified when new videos come up for Pros Park Pass. We do like 3 videos a week. All right, let's talk about who's going to become the new CEO. But before we get to that, I just want to say a big thank you. In the last video I did about this kind of business stuff, about Bob Iger, what he's already done, I did a little bit of business talking in it, and I thought most people think that's super boring. But whoa, boy, howdy, was I overwhelmed. When you read in the comments, you're like, wow, thanks so much for talking about this and talking about this. I didn't know this and didn't know this. So I thought I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more of my, before I became this goofy YouTuber, I was in the business world for about 20 years, very successful career there, I might add. I'm pretty proud of it. And I want to talk about, like, what is a CEO and how does a CEO work? Here is my handy dandy whiteboard. A CEO. A CEO stands for the Chief Executive Officer, and they are the highest position in a company. This is a publicly traded company usually. The highest position right there. And below them, they have like all kinds, they call them like the C-suite. You got like the, what do you have here? You got the CFO, that's the Chief Financial Officer. Then you got the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, the Chief Compliance Officer, the Chief Operations Officer. And they can even have more. They have like the CHR, the Chief HR, and they have like Chief Diversity Officer. And they all report up to the CEO. They're all reporting right up to the CTO. I'm the CEO, and they're all like, they have their little narrow lane of business that they're in charge of. The CEO is in charge of all of them. Now, a lot of you might be, we're asking, well, how could Bob Chapek get fired if he is the top? If he was the top, how can he get fired? Well, above the CEO, there's the board of directors. Now, what is the board of directors? The board of directors, any public traded company that's on the NASDAQ or the stock exchange has to have a board of directors. You have to have a board of directors. That's just bam. So if it's on the stock exchange, you know that the company has a board of directors. And here's some things about the board of directors. What does a board of directors do? They're the ones that kind of, they kind of say, they choose like how much the officers are going to be paid, like the CEO and all the CTO and all that. They're the ones that make that decisions. They're also the one that kind of gives some advice to the CEO, say, hey, this is where we want to go with the company. But really what the board of directors is most concerned about is profitability. They want to go what's called UATTR, up and to the right. They want the company to keep going up and to the right, making more and more money, making the stocks more and more profitable. And that's what really they're most concerned about. And that's their job, is to tell the CEO, like, are you taking us up and to the right? Are you taking us up and to the right? And the CEO, they have to do that. Now, there's some things that you need to know about the board of directors. This is the Disney board of directors. And I'm going to explain these colors in a second. Now, by law, to be on the board of directors for a company, the majority of the people on the board of directors cannot be an employee of the company. So, like if you had like 10 people on a board of directors, at least 6 of them would have to be non-employees of that company. Now, the other 4 could be employees, but the majority cannot be employees. That is a law. Also, on things that are really important, like auditing, that you can't have an employee, like if somebody is an employee and on the board of directors, they can't be on the auditing committee. It has to be somebody on the board of directors who's not with that company. Now, how big can the board of directors usually be? It can be any size, really, technically. Most board of directors are 8 to 12 seats. That's the typical average. Disney has 12 people on their board of directors. This is a little table I drew. That's why they call it a boardroom, because they got the board table. And you'll see all these red seats and this one black seat here. Disney has 12 board members. 11 of them are not Disney employees. Only one, this one right here, is the only Disney employee, and that is Bob Iger. The rest of them, they're not Disney employees. They are CEOs of other corporations, or, I mean, like, we're talking very impressive. We're talking very, very impressive people who had amazing business careers, and they are now on the board of directors for Disney. Now, do the people on the board of directors, do they get paid? They typically do get paid as being part of a board director, but if you are an employee of the company, you do not get paid for being on the board. If you're, because you get your employee's salary, you don't get the board of directors compensation. But the other ones here, the ones at 12, they do get the that compensated for that, the other 11. So what ended up happening with Bob Chapek, this board up here this time, they all became very concerned. They're very concerned with what's going on at the company. They didn't feel like it's going up and to the right, UATTR. They're like, it's not going up and to the right. We're losing stock. We're doing this. And they're the ones that have the capability to fire the CEO. They're the only ones that really can do that, fire the CEO. And they did. They're the ones that fired the CTO. I mean, the CEO. Okay, so now we talked about the board of directors. I want to talk about a CEO and what 5 characteristics I think a CEO has to have in order to be successful. I think this is probably what Bob Iger is looking for. There's other things. This is very kind of like watered down version. There's a lot of different traits that they're looking for, but I think these are 5 things that they're really looking for in the new future CEO of Disney. In order to be successful, you realize that not all CEOs are created equally. They're just not. Did you know that almost 30% of all CEOs are fired or let go within the first 24 months of being put in as a CEO? That's, almost a third. They're like washed out. And then you got a bunch, about another like 60 or so percent that they do pretty good. They keep the ship moving forward. They're not great. They're not bad. Everything's going. But you only have a small handful, maybe around 10%, that really excel at being an amazing CEO. And we're going to talk about that 10% that really excel at being an amazing CEO. In order to be a really good CEO, you have to have these 5 traits. Number 1, you have to have what's called adaptability. Adaptability is being able to adapt and change on the fly and change your business plans. I want you to think of, like, there's businesses like, do you remember Blockbuster Video? They were not adaptable. Do you know Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix and they passed on it because they didn't see any value in that? And they're gone. Also, there's an old company called Kodak. Kodak was a company that sold cameras, but where they really got their profitability was in film, right? They'd sell film that had to go in the camera, and then you go get those pictures developed. Kodak actually is one of the first companies to develop what? A digital camera. Amazing, right? But no, they weren't adaptable. They were worried if they had a digital camera that nobody would buy their film anymore, that they would then lose profit share. So they didn't even promote the digital camera, and they ended up going out of business because they weren't adaptable. So a CEO has to see the changes, what's going on, and become adaptable. Number 2 is teamwork. Teamwork. So a teamwork is when you have a CEO who's in a small company, maybe like 20 employees to maybe like 60 employees, that CEO probably considers himself the smartest person there. They've had every job in a small company. They've been in the mailroom. They've done this. And so they feel like they know everything. Where a lot of CEOs get tripped up is when the company starts growing, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, they can't know every single thing about the facet, the day-to-day of that particular business, right? But a lot of them, they want to be in control of that. And that's where they really don't have that teamwork. The smartest CEOs, what do? They hire people who are smarter than them to come in and run certain areas of the business, because that makes the business keep moving up and to the right, which is always what's very important for the board of directors. So a really smart CEO is going to hire smart people and surround them with a really good team. And I think we could kind of take a look at that. I think Bob Chapek didn't really surround himself with the strongest team. I think he surrounded people that just told him what he wanted to hear. Number 3, right here. Number 3 is foresight. This is probably the most difficult thing that a CEO has to be able to do. They have to project what's going to happen 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years down the road, and make sure the company is still relevant, and having that like kind of looking down the road and seeing that. This is really hard. Nobody out there can really see in the future. A lot of people say they can, but they can't. So the thing is they have to be able to be really strong and be able to predict what's going to happen, have that foresight and look down the road. But that comes back to like surrounding themselves with smart people. That's looking at business trends and trying to see what's going to happen down the road. They're not satisfied with the status quo. They're looking down and looking at the future. Smart CEOs are. All right, the number 4 thing that is reliability. This is very important. Is the CEO has to be as strong as their reliability. If a CEO, if they say they're going to do something, they better do it. If a CEO promises certain things, they have to be reliable and do those things. And when they do that, it builds trust, particularly with the board. The board of directors really likes reliable CEOs, and that is something that I'm sure that Bob Iger is looking for when he chooses a new candidate. All right, now the 5th trait, that is decency. Decency, you might be like, what do you mean by decency? Successful CEOs, the ones who are really good, are decent. They know that their employees are humans. They treat them as humans. They're decent, they're kind, they have compassion, and that really builds trust within the company. It builds trust with the employees, it builds trust with the board, it builds trust with the public relations and with the media by being a decent, good person. Sometimes they will do things that they'll make those hard decisions because it's a decent decision and it might not be the most profitable for the company, but it's the decent decision. Those CEOs always do well in the long run, and finding somebody who's decent to help run the company should be a high priority. Now, those are the 5 traits I think are really important for almost any company, but Disney, they have one other. I'm gonna call this the bonus trait. Their CEO has to be media savvy. This is just because of the way the Disney company is. It's such high profile. Their CEO is going to be interviewed a lot. It's going to be on stage a lot. And they have to have that media savvy. They have to be quick. They have to be like quick thinker, think on the fly. And they need to be a media darling. The media has to like them. The people has to like them. We kind of witnessed that with Bob Chapek. He wasn't really media savvy like that. The media didn't like him. When he got on stage, when he talked, it felt like a canned response. Felt like kind of like too little robotic that way. Bob Iger, he is a media darling. People like him. He looks good on camera. He does well, and he's a media star. And I think that's something that Disney is hyper aware of right now because they realized with Bob Chapek, he didn't have that. So our next CEO has to have that. Now, I want to get into who I think, these are my 5 predictions of who I think could be the next CEO of Disney. When Bob Iger was reinstated as CEO, one of his tenets that was given to him by the board was to find a new CEO. They gave him a 2-year term to be able to find a new CEO for Disney. Basically, what the board of directors was saying is like, hey, you know what? We feel like you kind of made a mistake. Let's remedy that. We know you're a good person, Bob Iger. So find us a new CEO who could run Disney and take us up and to the right. And so that's really one of his big things that Bob Iger is trying to do. So let's take a look at who I think he's probably looking at to maybe be the new CEO of Disney. Now, there are 2 types of candidates that could be considered for a CEO of Disney. You've got internal candidates and external candidates. An internal candidate, that really helps boost morale. They select somebody internal in the company, that helps solidify it. They usually have the vision of Disney. They like that. I mean, I want you to think about that. When you're at a company, go work at a company, and they're like, hey, look at that. Look at Justine over here. She's been here a year and a half, was promoted to manager. You're like, well, I could be promoted to manager in a year and a half. It helps build morale, right? Or can you imagine what happens? Like you've been working for a company for a year and a half, and all of a sudden like a manager position comes in, it becomes available, and everybody applies for it, and then they come back like, no, nobody's qualified. So we hired this person and brought him over here, and now they're a new manager. Morale typically goes down. So most smart business companies, business savvy companies, always try to go internal rather than go external. So I'm going to show you 4 internal candidates who I think that Bob Iger is probably looking at, and 1 external candidate who I think Bob Iger was also looking at. Okay, so before I start naming who I think my next predictions are, who could be the next CEO of Disney, I just want to say this. I'm going to say some pros and cons about each person, but I don't want you to take that the wrong way. These people I'm talking about are incredibly talented, incredibly smart, intelligent, and hardworking. And when I say that the pros and cons, I'm just kind of looking at a high level saying, this is what I think other people have been saying about them. But I think that any one of these people, if they became the CEO of Disney, it would take the company in the right direction. All right, on to the predictions. The first internal candidate I think about Bob Iger might be looking at is Christine McCarthy. Christine McCarthy is the current CFO at Disney. That means she's a chief financial officer, and she was actually very instrumental in getting Bob Chapek to leave the company. It's rumors are said that she's the one that went to the board, brought up all the concerns. She's a diehard Disney fan. It's like, hey, we're not going the right direction. We need to get a new CEO, and she's the one that kind of led the charge, which I have to respect, because if it would have backfired, if she would have gone there and this would have backfired, she would have lost her job. She would have been ousted and been gone. But she was so passionate. She's like, no, this is what has to happen. I think that she is probably on the short list of candidates for being the next CEO of Disney. Now, Christine, she's got amazing business sense, a lot of financial sense, but let's go through some of the pros and cons of Christine, of what would make her a good CEO, maybe might not make her the strongest CEO. Pros, number 1, business savvy. She knows business better than, she really knows business to a super high degree. Number 2 pro, she does have an excellent working relationship with Bob Iger. Bob Iger trusts her, and he seems to lean into her for her opinion. So that's a really good thing to have, that working relationship. That means that he probably feels that she would carry on the vision that he would carry on. Number 3, she can make those hard decisions. She's showing that she can make those really hard decisions that need to be made. Like with Bob Chapek when he was having problems, she made those hard decisions, and that's a really strong fundamental business that you need in a CEO. Here's the things, though. There are some cons for Christine McCarthy and why she might not be considered for the next CEO. She's somewhat disliked by Disney fans. She kind of made a statement that a lot of people are like, whoa, you can't say that. And she said that maybe Disney should make smaller food size portions because it would help with people eating healthier. And people are like, you can't say that. How can you say that? And so she did say that Disney should maybe have smaller food portions so that people could be healthier. And a lot of people kind of got turned off by that. The other con that Christine seems to have is that she's not like, remember we talked about that 6th trait that you have to have. She's not maybe a media darling. She doesn't have that media savvy that maybe a lot of other of these candidates might have. And I think that Disney's probably really looking for that. So out of 100% chance, I think she's got a 5% chance of becoming the next CEO. The next person I think Bob Iger might be looking at to become the next CEO of Disney is Dana Walden. Dana Walden is the current chairman of Disney General Entertainment Content, also known as DGE. And she has got a lot of experience. She was at one point the CEO of Fox. She is right now currently overseeing the creation of original content entertainment program for the company's streaming services. Now we know that Disney, that's one of the areas that Disney is really concerned about, is they're streaming, they're losing money there. And so they want somebody to come in and be able to be very aware of the streaming content. And she's right in the thick of it. She was previously the chairman for Fox Television Group. She was also in charge of ABC for 3 years. ABC, she brought to be from 4th place to 1st place, the first time in 25 years that ABC was #1 in the network. So she has a lot of like this great way of taking content and media and making people like it and see what it is. And I think that she's going to be heavily considered to be the next CEO. The rumor was that she was being considered before Bob Chapek, that she was in a short list of people being considered, but she was overlooked. Her pros are she already knows, was already considered, which if you already considered, that means they're probably re-looking at her again. She probably knows media and streaming almost better than anybody there within the Disney company. She's had CEO experience at Fox, and she was mentioned in Bob Iger's first memo to the employees. She was mentioned there saying she's going to be a decision maker, so it means that Bob Iger is already looking at her to kind of lead the company. The cons that Dana probably has is that she doesn't have as much business experience as other people. All of her stuff's been in the creative side of television and streaming media, so she might not have as much business experience. And so sometimes the board might be a little bit nervous about something like that coming in. But I think that also balances out because she was the CEO of Fox, meaning that there's got to be some business experience in there as well. So if I had to pick her, I would say she has a 25% chance of becoming the next CEO of Disney. The next person I think Bob Iger is looking at, the next internal candidate, is Alan Bergman. Alan Bergman is the chairman of Disney Studios Content. And he's been with the Disney company for a little over 25 years. One thing that Alan Bergman brings is he has strong Hollywood relationships with all the creative people of all the different studios over there. And that was one of the things that some people said that Bob Chapek kind of burned. People got upset with. When Scarlett Johansson, when Black Widow's released, there was a lot of people who were like, they didn't like the way that Bob Chapek handled that. So by having Alan Bergman become the new CEO, he'd probably be able to smooth over those relationships. And Disney needs to have strong relationships with people in Hollywood so they keep making this content and creating great movies and things like that. So that is important to Disney to have those strong relationships. Alan Bergman also, he's been at the company for 25 years, mostly on the creative side. His pros are he has excellent Hollywood connections, and he understands probably Disney culture better than anybody else, maybe even on this list. He's a diehard Disney fan and Disney visionary. The cons are Alan Bergman's majority of his experience since he's been with Disney for the last 25 years has been focused on studio content, not as much on the business side. And that's where one of the things that I think the board might be kind of looking at that. I'm like, we might be a little nervous about that because we want somebody to come in and really understand the business aspects of the Disney side as well. If I had to put a peg it at a percentage, I'd say Alan Bergman has a 20% chance of becoming the next CEO. Now, before I name the next person I think it might be considered an internal candidate, I would like to hear from you. Put it down in the comments below. Do you agree with the picks that I'm coming up with who will be possible future candidates for CEO for Disney? Or if you disagree and say, no, Chris, you're completely off base, you got to look at this person here, put it down below. I'd really like to hear your guys' opinions on this because it really kind of helps foster my thinking as well. Because I'm like, oh, maybe I missed that or I didn't think of that. I love your guys' opinions, so put it down below. All right. The next internal candidate that I think Bob Iger is probably looking at is Josh D'Amaro. Now, Josh D'Amaro is widely recognized by a lot of Disney fans. Josh D'Amaro is the current chairman of Disney Parks Experience and Products. Basically, any Disney theme park, it's under his umbrella. He's in charge of it. He's well liked. The cast members love him. People like flock to him. He's got that, I don't know, that je ne sais quoi, that he's so charismatic. People really like him, and people, I think, are rooting for him to become the next CEO. Actually, the thing that Josh has that maybe these other candidates don't quite have. He is a media darling. He is so well liked and so charismatic. He can get up on front of the stage. He's quick-witted. He can do impromptu. People like him when he's talking to them. And that's really something I think Disney is looking for in their next CEO and leader. The problems that Josh has, though, the cons, some of them aren't necessarily his fault. Number one is that the parks are not struggling. The parks are doing very well. So they might be a little nervous to remove Josh out of that particular area because like right now, 63% of the profitability comes from the parks. They might want to just keep Josh where he is. It's that old adage, you're doing so good that they don't want to promote you because they don't want to lose you in that one area. The areas where they're struggling, Josh doesn't have as much business experience. He doesn't have experience with the streaming or the financial side. Almost his whole career has been on the park side. So that might be a downfall for him. But on the other hand, Boss Chapek held that position where Josh D'Amaro is right now, and then they promoted him to CEO. So that could be a positive. But then again, that could also be a negative because I might be saying, well, that's the position Bob Chapek had, so maybe he didn't have enough experience. So do we want to have that same kind of following and bring somebody in from the same position? We might want to look outside. So he might be in the wrong position right now to be considered for the CEO. But, I mean, he is a media darling, and people really seem to like Josh D'Amaro a lot. He's very kind to cast members, and cast members, they are very loyal to Josh D'Amaro. In fact, my wife has a crush on Josh D'Amaro, so he kind of has that going for him. If I had to put a percentage on the chances of him becoming the next CEO, I would put that at 20%, 20%. Okay, so let's take a look at my next prediction, who somebody could become the next CEO of Disney. This is an external candidate, not an internal candidate. His name is Kevin Mayer. Kevin Mayer is the only outside candidate being considered in this video. Kevin Mayer, he used to work at Disney. In fact, if you could take a time machine back to right before Bob Iger appointed Bob Chapek to be the CEO, the majority of people thought it was going to be Kevin. They all thought Kevin was going to become the new CEO. In fact, if it would have happened, people would have been like, oh, yeah, makes sense. Kevin Mayer is going to be the next CEO of Disney. Everybody thought that was going to happen. When Bob Chapek was actually appointed, that was a bit of a surprise. We were like, whoa, they didn't see that coming. So it was a bit of a surprise. Kevin Mayer, at that point, he left the company, and he felt like he was overlooked, and he felt he was very qualified, and he left the company. And a lot of people on Wall Street feel that that was a mistake that the board made and that Bob Iger made. They said that Kevin Mayer was the right guy who had the experience and that he should have been put in as CEO. Kevin Mayer, at this time, he started his own media company called Candle Media. You might not be familiar with Candle Media, but one of the shows that they produce is CoComelon. You heard of CoComelon? A lot of people know who CoComelon is. One of the most popular shows. He's in charge of that. Also, it was a Reese Witherspoon show called Hello Sunshine. He's in charge of that. And he knows Disney streaming better than probably anybody. In fact, he was the one that was in charge of Disney streaming before he left the company. He understands media, he understands business, and he understands streaming content. He's a really business savvy person. Here's the cons, though. He said he doesn't want to come back. He does not want to come back to Disney. That's a huge con. But I think there is a way for that to happen. It could happen as if Bob Iger did an acquisition and brought Candle Media in under the Disney umbrella. Then at that point, I think Kevin Mayer would probably be considered to be tapped to be the next CEO of Disney. I mean, CoComelon, that seems kind of Disney-esque to me anyways. I mean, I think a lot of people probably thought that was under the Disney umbrella. And so if they just slid that under there, then he would probably become the next CEO of Disney. The cons are, it would have to have an acquisition. We do know that Bob Iger likes to do that in order for him to come back, because he's not going to leave Candle Media. He's not going to do that. The guy is incredibly talented, and if I had to choose, I would put him actually probably at the highest at 30% chance of him becoming the next CEO. Now, Put it down in the comments down below. Who do you think is going to be the next CEO? Of these 5, who do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? You can even put my name down if you want. Say, hey, Chris Pearl's for CEO. I accept. Go ahead and put it down below. Who you think is going to be the next CEO? If there's somebody there that you think I completely missed, or like, Chris, you didn't see this person, or look at these accolades here. I want to hear your guys' arguments about that because it helps me understand, expand my knowledge. Also, I'd like to hear, did you kind of like the little explanation about CEOs and boardrooms? I thought that was kind of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that. You guys are amazing. I need to tell you that you are awesome. I think you're amazing. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. You guys are awesome. Have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.